Hello, and welcome to Sleep Sessions, where I record new sleep and relaxation stories every Friday. Tonight, we're going on a journey to a peaceful canyon with a beautiful river and plenty of rabbits. This is an original sleep story called The Rabbit's Warren. Get comfortable, relax, and enjoy. In the mountains above town, a canyon of cottonwood trees cut a path between the great granite bluffs. It was a calm, green ribbon that wound back and forth, following the path of a particularly lazy river. At least, it was lazy today, in the heat of late summer. In the spring, the river was roaring, full of sparkling clean snowmelt that dripped down from the mountaintops high above. As the worn days of summer rolled by, the river settled down and became a peaceful trickle, where deer and elk would gather and drink in the shade of the cottonwood trees. In this canyon lived a rabbit named Blacktail. Blacktail was a lop rabbit with soft velvety fur and droopy spotted ears that hung down at the sides of his face. He looked as if he was wearing little earmuffs all season round, and the ear covering kept his face warm through all seasons of weather. He had a beautiful spotted coat, most of it brown, but some mottled black, and that was why the other animals gave him the name Blacktail. In the canyon, the world was always changing in a wonderful way. Every day was beautiful, and it was never the same as the last, but every beautiful day would come again in its own way. Some days were hot summer days, when the air was a warm hug that wrapped itself around the animals and sank slowly out of the mouth of the canyon, down into the river below. On those days, the animals were sleepy and slow. The heat lulled them into a calm, easy mood, and they would approach the river in groups of twos or threes and take small sips from the placid water. Blacktail loved the summer months. The grass was tall and fresh, and it tickled his nose when he smelled the earthy smell on the wind as puffs of pollen drifted down toward the valley below. He loved feeling warm under his fur coat and stretching all the way out with his pink little paws and turning his nose up toward the sun. He liked to flop on the grass so that he was extended in a long, furry loaf, and above him the sky and clouds would pass over. He liked to hop after the silky tufts of milkweed as they drifted through the canyon, floating high above outcroppings and shaded trails, dancing in the air like tiny ballerinas. He enjoyed the delicious taste of the fresh, wild herbs that grew in the shaded nooks underneath great shards of granite and limestone that rose up from the mountain. Of course, there were other days than summer days. Some days were fall days, which were crisp and cool, and had colorful rains of leaves as the trees went to sleep for the winter. On those days, Blacktail enjoyed twitching his nose back and forth in the fresh air and watching the colors of the leaves slowly turn into a sunset canvas that reflected its brilliant colors in the cool river. Some days were the sparkling days of pure winter, when fresh snow hung from the branches and the river gleamed blue. On those days, Blacktail liked to play in the snow. He would hop as high up as he could, his legs carrying him up into the air, and then land on the soft powder that caught him and exploded in a shower of snowflakes around him. He made snow rabbits and snow tunnels, and many other excellent snow concoctions. Blacktail gathered herbs and sticks in his warren for winter, and on cold nights he ate them and warmed himself. And then the snow thawed, and the bright green energy of spring came, as tiny rabbits poked their heads out from the tall grass. On those days, Blacktail enjoyed the new grass most of all. It was fresh and tasty and always very welcome, and he ate it while he watched pieces of snow fall down as the sun melted the last clumps hanging heavy to oak branches and released fresh water into the river. Now it was summer. It had been a beautiful summer, full of warmth and hopping. The deer had been particularly playful, prancing back and forth across the river while Blacktail hopped excitedly behind them. But one day in the late summer, Blacktail could smell a change in the air. It was a warm, lazy summer day, and Blacktail was stretched out underneath the welcome shade of an overhanging rock. His paws were curled up, and his ears were flopped to his side, and in the distance he could hear the gentle footprints of the elk as they walked down to the river. But the air had a certain surprising crispness to it, a fresh feeling that did not come in the summer. Blacktail could see the leaves beginning to show a hint of gold as they fluttered in the wind. For Blacktail, this was exciting. The fall days were some of his favorite. Fall was a time to build a warren. A warren was a special home. It was a home for Blacktail, but it was a home for his friends and fellow rabbits as well. All the rabbits of the mountain canyon came together to choose the spot for their warren and to build the perfect home for the fluffle who would live there. It was a big event, and it was the chance to think about the perfect home and what made the most inviting space. After all, the warren was where the fluffle of rabbits would spend the fall and the winter together. A proper warren had to be large enough for everyone, and warm enough to keep everyone cozy and comfortable, no matter what turns the weather took. Building the warren properly was a large responsibility, and it was one of Blacktail's favorite jobs. Blacktail began to hop his way up the stream to the meeting place with his friends where the warren would be built. The grass was soft and green under his feet, and it felt good to spring up and down on the dirt. He saw a wriggling earthworm making its way through the fresh soil to find a raspberry plant on the far side of the bank. Further down the way, he saw a female deer with great white spots, like polka dots, up and down her nose and sides, sniffing with satisfaction at the foliage of the nearby bushes. The leaves glittered green as they waved in the wind and reflected the sunlight that streamed down through the mountains. Blacktail kept hopping. The river was long and lazy, and it stretched a great distance between the two mountain walls. Blacktail saw the green moss growing up the stones, with tiny little furry speckles that reminded him of the fuzz on his own nose. He saw clouds drifting overhead in shapes that reminded him of other rabbits. Blacktail had enjoyed a long and lazy summer, and now he was ready to see his friends. Finally, he approached the meeting place for all the rabbits. It was a bend in the river where the stream turned and slowed even more than usual. The river was as calm and sleepy as anything can be, just a gentle trickle of water lapping over itself on its worry-free way to some other place. Through his bright blue eyes, Blacktail saw that the other rabbits were already waiting for him. He recognized his friends of the mountains. The canyon was a safe, calm place where many rabbits chose to live and play. Blacktail saw Peanut and Cashew, who were lops like him, but with soft brown fur in a single color over their whole bodies. They were sisters, and they looked nearly identical with their pink noses and tiny white paws. He saw Crackers, a funny boy with pointy ears that shot straight up over his head, and a face that perked up at the slightest sound. He saw Fluffnose, a girl with the biggest and most unruly head of curly hair that Blacktail had ever seen. Everyone stood on their hind legs in greeting, and then did lots of important sniffing. The sniffing was very important, in fact. Rabbits understood that things should smell the right way, and that things that are right smell that way indeed. Crackers and Peanut and Fluffnose and Cashew all took turns smelling Blacktail, and he took turns smelling them. When the exchange was finished, and everyone agreed that everything was in order, the rabbits set to work. A warren needed to be a cozy place. It needed to be spacious and warm, and decorated just right with fresh leaves and trimmed twigs and roots. Fluffnose had strong paws and was an excellent digger, and so she began to dig away in the soft, fresh dirt. She liked how it felt to dig there because the dirt was cool and gentle as it sprinkled the edges of her curly hair. Peanut and Cashew started using their strong teeth to tear up twigs and drag them onto small little beds that could be softened with leaves to make cozy rabbit mattresses. Blacktail wanted to help his friends, and so he started to work at enlarging the tunnels, digging down into the earth and connecting the passages from one end of the tunnel to the other. The day was warm and beautiful, and the sun lit the rabbits as they worked away together next to the riverbank. The water kept laughing in the lazy brook as tiny paws and tiny ears worked away at their project. There was certainly plenty to do that day, but everyone helped and did their part, and so the work did not seem all that bad. Blacktail was digging as hard as he could, taking out small pieces of earth and enlarging the tunnels. He did take a break to eat some of the delicious sun-dried grass gathered in the warren, and to laugh at Fluffnose's curls, as they were now ringed by a glitter dusting of dirt. After lunch, he helped Peanut and Cashew finish putting in the bedding, and then he helped in the very important work of testing it, by rolling over and stretching out his legs as far as they would go. Blacktail flopped and decided that he heartily approved. By the time the sun went down and the stars came out, the rabbits had all been working all day, and they were growing tired and ready for a rest. But Blacktail was proud of what he and his friends had created. Working together, they had built the coziest warren. The tunnels were deep and wide into the earth, and the edges were lined with soft leaves and beds of branches. The roots had been cleared away to make space, and there was plenty of room for the rabbits to sleep next to one another. When the weather was cold, the rabbits all liked to cuddle together and keep each other warm with their plush coats of fur and soft rabbit beds. This year's warren, Blacktail thought, was one of the best warrens that the rabbits had ever built. Lounging at the entrance to the warren with his friends, Blacktail looked up at the stars. It was now a beautiful, clear night, and the stars shined down like diamonds over the canyon. The water of the lazy river reflected the bright spots in the sky with a sleepy twinkle, and all throughout the canyon the animals were preparing to go to sleep. The elk bedded down beneath green canopies, and the deer found places to lay their heads and watch their young ones. Blacktail saw birds in the trees, leaning their heads on each other as they curled into their nests and wrapped their wings close to stay warm. It was a beautiful, peaceful night. Just like every night, the world changed slightly, and the next day would bring something new. But Blacktail knew that that day would have its own wonderful beauty, and that together with his friends, he could handle whatever challenges came with it. That was the way of things in the peaceful canyon, and the way of life for the animals. The turning of the days brings new cycles and new challenges, and new solutions and new opportunities. It was comforting to know this, but also comforting to enjoy the constants of the world that kept Blacktail grounded in his life. The gentle laughter of the river was his constant companion, and the canopy of stars above stretched over him like a blanket. Both were watchful guardians of the canyon and the rabbits, no matter the season. And now Blacktail knew it was time to sleep. The rabbits had worked together to build a cozy warren that would keep everyone warm. It was a perfect place. It was safe and inviting. The warm walls and beds made Blacktail sleepy as he hopped his way inside the warren. He saw Fluffnose and Peanut and Crackers and Cashew, all spread out with their legs stretched wide and their paws upturned, as they fell asleep in their new home. Blacktail hopped his way over to his friends and curled in with them, and the cozy pile of fur kept him warm and safe throughout the night, while the stars and the moon watched over them from above. All the animals were tucked in now, precisely where they belonged, with a soft, inviting bed underneath and a warm cover above. The world was dark and gentle and quiet, inviting everyone to rest from the day and prepare for an even better day tomorrow. Blacktail's pink, wet nose twitched with a rabbit smile as he thought about the wonderful things he would do the next day, and ever so slowly he drifted off to sleep in the rabbit's new warren. The end.